This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with his newest expert, Taylor from Life Goal Investments. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me as always, Michael.
So one thing I'm asking all my experts this week, so good news, you're on the list, and is what books do you recommend to read? Obviously, all of my experts come with different domain expertise. You are my Wall Street guy, right? 10 years on the street. So I'm curious, your list of books might be very different than some of my other experts. So Taylor, what do you got?
Yeah, so I will fire 3 of them at you.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
one of them I will say is my favorite. And admittedly, you'll get this answer from a lot of different people, this specific book, but there is absolute reason and warrant for that.
Okay.
So The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Okay.
The second one is Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Okay.
And the third one is Principles by Ray Dalio, who is one of the best investors of all time. So we can certainly dive in. You tell me what order you want to discuss them in, but I can give you a couple highlights of the points that I love on each one of them.
Let's just go backwards. So we're starting at number 3, Ray Dalio's. Was it Ray Dalio's first book? It was certainly the first book I read, Principles. I think.
Yes, I think it was. I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. In the other room.
Yeah, do you have it up somewhere as well?
I do. That's a good one. I remember getting it. I remember ordering on Amazon because again, Ray Dalio is one of those, like him and Warren Buffett. And I bought the book and I remember getting it. I'm going, this is a little meatier than I expected.
Oh yeah. You gotta dig in. You're getting to the weeds at some point. Yeah,
exactly.
I think the kind of the boiling down of it is just one really key takeaway to me. So it all comes back to the equation of like pain and reflection equals progress. And so what he's referring to there is the pain is we're all gonna make mistakes, but the difference between the difference between some people and others is the fact that you got to take a look in the mirror and say, okay, I realize I screwed that up, but why is it? And dive in and peel back that onion. And then what you get from that is the progress that he references in the book throughout that is now a key principle or tenet as to how you run your life and your business. And I've seen several interviews with Ray on this, and they ask him a lot of times, what is the key principle? What is the one that's been the success of your life? Mm-hmm. And he says, without skipping a beat every single time, idea meritocracy. And so that is just the fact that Ray does not make decisions in a silo. He does not say, I am the smartest person on the planet, although he is.
Yeah.
He says, challenge me, Michael, tell me I am wrong. I want anybody in this building, when I step up to say something, to tell me I'm wrong and present me with facts that is a logical explanation as to why your idea is better than mine. And I have no bones, no quibs about taking your idea over mine. It's just the tough love. If I say something and it's stupid, please step up, Michael, and tell me I'm an idiot.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the fact that he does that. Again, you can get to that level, and many Wall Streeters at that level kind of have the ego and the almost like Superman, nothing can touch them. And groupthink takes over. I mean, I'm saying this, not you. Cathie Wood had a 2-year run where people were, and she's still speaking like she is, the best thing out there, where I would argue she had amazing timing. She had a couple of nice wins, and then she took highly leveraged businesses right when the Fed was slashing rates and risk went to zero. So she looked great for 2 years in a row. And I did a video 8 months ago saying it's going to end. And just last week or the week before, she's in last place. Talk about going from first to last in like a heartbeat, so it can happen.
I'll add something onto the Cathie Wood to just make it look how dramatically different she is from Ray Dalio, who talks about humility and things like that. Cathie Wood comes out and says, my fund is going to annualize 15%. What? 15%. We've talked about this in the past, Michael, that right now Vanguard is estimating the S&P over the next 10 years is going to annualize 3.3%.
Yeah.
She comes out and says, I'm going to put up a 5 handle, 4 handle, whatever it is on that number. And I'm going to annualize that year on year. What?
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot, yeah, group think going on there, right? It's just keep feeding me the same thing. She's not being challenged, right? Clearly she is she's running a shop where she makes the calls and all of that, and you get what you get, right? I mean, you were on Wall Street for 10 years. I've been reading about money for 30 years. And the reason I called Kathy out 8 months ago is I do not remember any investor having a 3-year run of being the best of the best, right? It all comes back in. There is timing involved, and she just had amazing timing. And now she does
really tough to have a fund. So I'm not talking about individual stock.
No,
a fund
yes.
that loses, I want to say at the max drawdown, it was over 60%. I know that. It might have touched 70% at the max drawdown from her peak to what she just recently saw. And nothing's to say that we have seen the bottom in these high-flying tech stocks at this point.
No,
So,
I would argue they're not done.
Right. This is absurd. Yeah, I can't agree with you anymore when it comes to Kathy Wood.
Yeah. So again, principles, idea, meritocracy. There's an SAT word for you. Ray Dalio still believes it. You could still see him, and when he has in good conversations and good questions, he's still chewing on stuff. He's all about constantly learning. And I did this picture. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. This is his. He called it something. I don't remember.
It's slipping me too. I should have it, but I don't.
Yeah, it's a great thing. So let's go number 2.
And Michael,
go ahead.
One other thing I'll say on Ray Dalio is Ray Dalio runs the largest hedge fund. I should have said that. I should have prefaced it with this. Ray Dalio runs the largest hedge fund in the world.
Bridgewater,
right?
Bridgewater.
Yeah, Bridgewater, exactly right. And so his all-weather portfolio is predicated. Everything we do at Life Goal Investments is predicated on his all-weather portfolio, which is essentially what he does is try to build in equal amounts of 3 different risks within the portfolio. So equal amount of equity risk, equal amount of fixed income risk, and equal amount of inflation-linked risk. And then you put them all together, you create this diversified portfolio that can weather all different storms. He admits himself, I'm not smart enough to tell you where the economy is going.
Right.
So I'm not playing the game that I'm going to try to overweight equity risk now versus before. He says, I'm not smart enough to do that. And that's the greatness of Ray Dalio is let me build in these 3 things over time because of our consistency we'll win. But any individual year, we're not going to win. And that's the whole theory behind the portfolio in general. And that's why we have admittedly thieved some of that idea and implemented into Life Goal Investments.
Awesome. Yeah. I love that book. All right. Number 2 was Good to Great. Talk about that one.
Good to Great. So Good to Great is awesome. This isn't necessarily an investing book, although the determining factor if you are a good to great company is your investment performance. So it talks about 11 different companies that when before the greatness started, they were either at or below market performance on their stock. And then for 15 straight years, over that 15-year period of time, their stock had to do 3x the market. So that is 3 times multiple over 15 years. So you are looking at good companies that become absolute phenoms. And their names, and these go back throughout history. So you look at them over a long period of time. Cigarette company, Philip Morris. Wells Fargo Bank, which obviously has had a fall from grace since then. Walgreens. These are all companies. But there's 3, I'll use principles because we're on that topic of Ray Dalio. There's 3 principles or 3 underlying similarities, commonalities between all of these 11 companies. And I'll talk to you about them in 2 seconds. So the first one is what they call the hedgehog concept. And so what the hedgehog concept goes back to Greek mythology. And they talk about this hedgehog that constantly gets attacked by a fox. And the fox is sly, so it has all these different angles it tries to come at to the hedgehog. And the hedgehog does the exact same thing every single time. Curls up in a ball with the spikes on its back and protects itself. And so what that is an analogy for is companies knowing exactly what their core competency, exactly what they're better at than their competition. And this is an absolute must for a company that's going to go from good to great. So an example of this, Walgreens. Walgreens knew that the core tenet of the success of their company was all predicated on convenience. Convenience over every other drugstore. They said Eckerd would put an Eckerd drugstore anywhere in a city. They said, nope, We need this to be walkable by 90% of the, whatever the numbers were. They were under convenience, and their thought was that was the absolute differentiator of them versus everybody else. And their success was absolutely phenomenal to do that. So that's kind of the first core tenet, if you will, is the hedgehog concept. The second one is what they call the bus. And so they talk about who sits on your bus. And it's interesting. They think that the most important thing is not to have one massive figurehead and everyone else beating to their drum.
Kathy Wood.
Kathy Wood. Exactly right. Not Ray Dalio, right?
Yeah.
All these things are going to come back, come back around, right?
So
it's who's getting on the bus.
Right.
And they say this, they would hire, and then 3 months later, they would look back and say, would I rehire that individual now? And it was interesting just to see all the different companies and their approaches. But what the core tenet or the commonality between all of them was either people were on the bus for a very long period of time, or they were on the bus and right back off the bus. Yep. So it's the whole theory of hire slowly, fire quickly.
Amen.
And so they didn't, the VPs or whatever you want to call the higher ups weren't always in the same positions, but the good ones, they would rotate them around and find their spot. And the bus was the most important thing.
Like it. Okay. The hedgehog, the bus. One more.
Yeah. Level 5 leader. And a level 5 leader is there's 5 different iterations of a level 5 leader. I won't go into it, but at the end of the day, most of the leaders of these companies that took them from good to great started like on their factory floor. Or whatever, whatever that may be, a parallel to Walgreens or Philip Morris or whatever it is. But they started out, they knew every single piece of the company through and through. They'd spent times in multiple different branches, and they were humble. They were not one genius and everyone else beneath them doing what they said. They brought people up, they delegated, and they took ideas from everyone. And again, kind of to Ray Dalio's point, idea meritocracy runs it. A lot of them would say when they were interviewed, I just got lucky that I was the person chosen to be in this spot. Like that's a really good, humble feeling that a leader could possibly resonate down to his, constituents. And those types of comments would be the point of commonality. I keep saying that across all the different leaders of these 11 companies.
That's awesome. All right. One more. Psychology of money.
The psychology of money is just so good. Morgan Housel, again, at the end of the day, I'm a big believer that personal finance comes largely down to not what you're investing in, but your actual psychology. How able are you to weather the tough times, et cetera, et cetera. So he starts the book off with someone that I had never heard of. And I think 99% of people have never heard of, even in the financial business, a guy named Ronald Reed. So Ronald Reed is a Vermonter. He's a World War II veteran, and he is a janitor. So why would Morgan Housel and, Psychology of Money, which is an investing book, start out with that? Well, this gentleman died and left $8 million to the hospital. None of this inherited, to the hospital and the library in his Vermont town. And what it came down to was he was incredibly frugal. He didn't spend above his means. And not that he's picked, high flying stocks or high flying mutual funds or whatever it is. It was just extremely consistent. He dollar cost averaged, so invested XYZ money every single month. And he did it, and he didn't really look at it. So he studied up front what he wanted to invest in, grew conviction in that, and consistently dribbled money into this. So this is a janitor living in Vermont that's able to save enough money, not inherit a single dollar, to donate $8 million on his death. And no one knew he had a penny to his name.
I need to buy that book. I'm not read Psychology of Money.
It's awesome. So I'll give you 2 more and then I'll shut up. And I know we're running along here.
No, it's good. I love this.
So the greatest thing about Morgan Housel too is that every one of his, if we refer back to Ray Dalio calling them principles, every one of his principles are a chapter in his book. And there's like 19 chapters. They're all short stories. So they're super entertaining and you can peel something out of every one of them. So I'll give you 2 more quick ones. Investing is not free.
Yeah.
So that's another one of his kind of chapters. I don't know if that's what he coins it, but essentially he says, Michael, you take your wife out to dinner, it's going to cost $100 or whatever it is. That going in, that it's not free. No one's giving you a value and a service for free. And he says, but people have the illusion that investing is. And he's not referencing tax. You have to pay tax at some point, which is true.
Mhm.
But what he's referencing is you have to pay the emotional stress that comes along with investing. I don't care how you invest. There is stress involved in investing, and there's no way you're getting around it.
Mhm.
And so he says that is the cost of making money in the market. Nothing is free,
Mm.
including the returns you get from investing, and the price you pay is the emotional stress.
Wow. I love that.
So that one's really cool. And then the last one that I'll talk about in this one is his case study on General Electric.
Mm.
So General Electric for 22 straight years in the United States was a top 10 most valuable company in the nation. 13 of those years, it was either number 1 or number 2 most valuable company in the nation. Apple currently sits there, right?
Mhm.
Or Amazon. Apple does. Yeah, Apple does. So this is Apple looking back, over a 20-year period of time, essentially.
Yep.
And all of the sudden, out of left field, General Electric gets a haymaker thrown its way. And if you had invested $10,000 in 2017, by 2020, it was only worth $3,500.
Oof.
Over that 4-year period of time, in a raging bull market, you got cut by 65%. And the lesson he says is you cannot just trust that a company is a great company and therefore it's a great investment. You
Mhm.
have to know a lot more. If you're going to buy individual stocks, you have to be reading 10K reports and things like that. And if you're not willing to do that work, stay out of that game. That game's not for you. And it's not to say you need to do that to have success investing.
Yeah.
But he says you cannot buy a great company because it's a great company. That is not reason for investment. You need to know a lot more.
Oh, that is awesome. Do me a favor. You put out a lot of great stuff on Instagram. What is your Instagram handle or page?
Yep, at Life Goal Investments. At
Awesome.
Life Goal Investments.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Michael.
Mhm.